Have you ever felt an invisible wall between you and the people you love? A wall so subtle that sometimes even you forget it's there, yet powerful enough to make you retreat every time someone comes too close. You crave love, connection, and warmth, yet the moment someone gets too near, a quiet panic rises inside you, telling you to step back, to protect yourself. That inner tug of war, longing for intimacy, and the fear of it tires. What we call the fear of intimacy. And if you've ever felt this, you are not alone. So many of us carry this silent burden, quietly sabotaging the very relationships we yearn for the most. Fear of intimacy isn't just shyness, or awkwardness, or hesitance. It's deeper, more invisible, and far more intricate. It's the unspoken voice inside that whispers, "If I let them in, I'll get hurt." It's the part of you that builds emotional walls so carefully, you almost forget they exist, until one day you find yourself standing alone on the other side. It is intimately tied to the patterns of your past, the early experiences that shaped your sense of safety and love, yet it operates silently in every moment of your present relationships. Many people think intimacy is only about romance, but fear of intimacy touches every corner of our lives. Friendships, family bonds, professional connections even. The way we show ourselves kindness can all be shadowed by it. You might notice yourself keeping conversations superficial, avoiding vulnerability, hiding your true emotions behind jokes or sarcasm, or resisting commitment even when your heart desperately wants it. You might choose partners who are emotionally unavailable, because unconsciously, you feel safer being with someone who cannot get too close. And when someone genuinely sees you, when they try to breach the walls you've so carefully built, your instinct is to withdraw, to protect the fragile parts of yourself that you are still learning to trust. The roots of this fear often stretch back to our earliest experiences. Perhaps it was a parent who was emotionally distant, a caregiver who offered love conditionally, or moments of childhood trauma that left tiny cracks in your sense of safety. Maybe it was a series of heartbreaks or betrayals in adolescence or adulthood that taught your mind closeness equals pain. Over time, these experiences consolidate into patterns, almost like software running in the background of your mind. Even if you consciously want connection, your subconscious is still programmed to shield you from it, to prioritize self-preservation over vulnerability. Inside a person who fears intimacy, there's an endless internal struggle. On one hand, there is a longing for closeness, a desire to be seen, heard, and loved. On the other, there is a deep fear of exposure, the terror that if you let someone in, they might reject you, manipulate you, or hurt you in ways that echo the past. This conflict can manifest in countless ways. You might overanalyze every word, text, or gesture from someone you care about, constantly trying to read hidden motives, scanning for signs of betrayal. You might test your partner unconsciously, creating small crises to see if they will leave, so you can confirm your fears without relying on them too. You might avoid commitment or sabotage promising relationships before they have the chance to grow, all while feeling guilt, shame, or confusion about your own actions. What makes fear of intimacy particularly painful is that it is so. The more we push people away, the lonelier we feel. The lonelier we feel, the more we crave connection. And the more we crave it, the more terrified we become of actually achieving it, because the stakes feel impossibly high. It is like standing on the edge of a cliff. You want to jump into the water of love, to feel its depth and warmth, yet the fear of falling keeps you frozen. Every step toward connection triggers the nervous system to go on high alert. Heart races, palms, sweat, mind spirals. The very thing your heart desires becomes the very thing you fear. You might see fear of intimacy in everyday life, even if you don't recognize it immediately. Maybe you avoid conversations about feelings. Maybe you change the subject whenever someone tries to get too personal. Maybe you find excuses not to spend quality time with someone who genuinely cares. Or maybe you feel the impulse to flee, to disappear, just when things are starting to feel real. These patterns are not moral failures. They are protective strategies that once served a purpose. They were ways to survive emotionally, to avoid the hurt and disappointment that life has a way of delivering. But now, they prevent the very connection that could heal old wounds. Fear of intimacy doesn't just affect how we interact with others. It affects how we interact with ourselves. It creates an inner world filled with conflicting emotions. Loneliness, longing, frustration, guilt, shame, and longing again. You might feel trapped in your own heart, simultaneously craving and fearing the very closeness that could bring the deepest fulfillment. Many who experience this fear struggle with self-esteem, often doubting their worthiness of love. They may see vulnerability as weakness, when in fact it is the pathway to the deepest strength. Yet, even in the shadow of this fear, hope exists. Fear of intimacy is not permanent. It is a learned response, a pattern that can be recognized, understood, and transformed. Awareness is the first step acknowledging that these fears exist, observing the moments when your walls rise, and gently exploring what triggers them. The next step is self-compassion. It's about allowing yourself to feel without judgment, recognizing that your fear once protected you and now deserves understanding, not punishment. Gradually, you can begin to experiment with small acts of vulnerability, sharing a thought, revealing a feeling, or leaning on someone in a safe, controlled way. Over time, these small acts erode the walls, brick by brick, until intimacy feels less like danger and more like home. Therapy and professional support can be invaluable. Trained professionals can guide you through the maze of emotions, past experiences, and patterns that feed this fear. Support groups and safe communities provide practice grounds for vulnerability, where your feelings are validated and your attempts at closeness are met with understanding rather than rejection. Journaling, mindfulness, and self-reflection can also illuminate the invisible mechanisms at play, helping you recognize triggers and responses before they dictate your actions. It is important to remember that fear of intimacy is not a flaw, nor is it a sign of weakness. It is a human response to the complexities of love and attachment, a testament to the mind's innate desire to protect the heart. Those who experience it are not doomed to a life of loneliness. They are on a journey of growth, learning to balance the instinct to protect with the courage to connect. Intimacy, real intimacy, does not require perfection. It requires honesty, presence, and the willingness to be seen, even when it feels frightening. Every small step matters. Sending that honest message, attending that heart-to-heart conversation, staying present instead of withdrawing, these are victories in themselves. Over time, these steps build trust. Trust in others, trust in yourself, and trust in the possibility that love can be both safe and fulfilling. Fear of intimacy may never fully disappear, but it can become manageable, navigable, and no longer a barrier to the connection you deserve. So, if you recognize yourself in these words, know this: the walls you've built around your heart were never meant to imprison you. They were meant to protect you until you were ready. And now, you are ready to explore what lies beyond. You are ready to take the first steps toward true closeness, knowing that every moment of courage is a victory over the fear that once held you back. Healing is not linear, and progress is often small and quiet, but each act of vulnerability is a bridge across the distance you once feared. Remember, intimacy is not just about merging with someone else. It is about reconnecting with yourself, allowing your authentic self to be seen, honored, and loved. It is about creating a space where closeness does not feel dangerous, but natural. And it begins the moment you decide to step forward, even when your heart trembles, even when fear whispers that it is too risky. Because the only way to experience love fully is to risk it, to let it in, and to allow yourself to be truly known. Take a moment today to reflect. Where have you been holding back? Who have you kept at a distance out of fear? What small act of courage can you take to bridge the gap? Awareness is the first step, action the next. Each step, however small, brings you closer to the warmth, connection, and love your heart has always longed for. You are not broken. You are not unlovable. You are human, and your fear of intimacy is simply part of the journey of learning to love deeply and authentically. And when you begin to understand, accept, and gently challenge that fear, you will find that the walls you thought protected you were also the very things keeping you from the joy you have always sought. Trust is built gently, not rushed, not demanded, earned through consistency. The people you fear aren't your enemies. They reflect your deepest wounds. They trigger what you buried. They want to love you. even when you don't know how to receive it. Intimacy isn't losing yourself. It's finding yourself with someone else. You deserve safe love. You deserve patience. You deserve connection without fear. Your walls were never the problem. Staying behind them is, love doesn't require perfection. Only presence. Only honesty. Only courage. You can learn to stay. You can learn to trust. You can learn to receive love. And it starts with understanding your fear. If this resonates with you, take a small but meaningful step today. Reach out, share a thought, express a feeling, or simply acknowledge your fear with kindness. Every act of vulnerability is a seed of transformation. And as you nurture these seeds, you will discover that intimacy is not something to be feared. It is the most profound, beautiful, and human experience you can allow yourself to have.